everybody makes, and I think thanks. I think you've got some great ideas, and there are comments we all struggle with, and issues we all struggle with. I've had some great trips up to District 42 and 99, and times it's good to see some familiar faces there. I have about a half an hour to share some just experiences I've had using Toastmasters to turn sort of challenges into opportunities. And it's interesting, the things that everybody was talking about as I was listening to the reports from the breakout rooms are things I've seen that we struggled with in Toastmasters for the last 33 or 34 years I've been in Toastmasters. And I think and the other thing I would just say, I hope you take this as a compliment. When I just got out of college, I had a mentor of mine that worked for my family's business, was talking to me, and I'd made some mistakes. I'd done some stupid things, and he pats me on the back and he says, "Lance, the good Lord doesn't give you youth and wisdom at the same time." And I didn't like to hear that because I thought I was pretty smart, but he didn't say smarts. He said wisdom. And then he'd wink at me and say, "You should enjoy both while you have them." And I just want to acknowledge the wisdom on this call today that we have in the room today, because, and I see that in Toastmasters quite a bit. There's a huge need for us to get, I think, young people into Toastmasters. And I have some examples of that I have going on in my life right now, working with some young people. But when I grew up, when I came into Toastmasters, I think like most of us, I had no idea the organization I was getting into, and I would have joined a lot sooner. And I'm just curious, how many people here would have joined sooner if you knew what it was? Because I would have joined a lot sooner, but I had to go to a meeting to experience it. And I think that's one of the challenges we have is people need to experience Toastmasters to be wanting to join. So one of the key things we want to do is create opportunities for people. I'm going to take the challenge of getting people to experience Toastmasters. So let's create an opportunity for them to experience it. And there were some things that happened with my club. And just to give you a little backstory on that, the Toastmasters International used to have a different DCP program that you got points for everything you did in the club. And I really liked that program. And I'm not a fan of this one. And just for the record, I'm not a fan of Pathways, but I'll tell you what we're doing to deal with that. And what they do is you got points and you were ranked internationally. And our club was something like, I think when we did this, there were 14 or 15,000 clubs in Toastmasters. And I think we were like 7,800 or something. And the club was struggling. We had 35 people on the roster, but we had like 12 coming to a meeting, and we're trying to figure out what to do. And so we had a challenge. And one day at one of the meetings, that some of you may have heard the story, I tell it all the time, but 5 of us showed up. We didn't have 12 showing up. 5 showed up, and we sat there. We didn't even have a meeting. We had coffee, and we're sitting around drinking coffee, thinking we should close the club. What should we do? And here is where the challenge and the opportunity came. Because Toastmasters ranked clubs internationally, somebody threw this idea out. If we're going to do Toastmasters, let's win with Toastmasters. And he said, I've sort of coined this, I don't want to run a hospice Toastmasters club, where you keep the members comfortable until the club dies. Okay, so he goes, let's go win with Toastmasters. Let's go do something else and win with it. That idea, we should win with Toastmasters, it resonated with me, but I realized when I look back on my Toastmasters journey, and I think this is one of the challenges we have, and I think there's an opportunity here, is that a lot of us, I think most people in life, had accumulated a lot more losses in life, a lot more failures in life than they have successes. And so somebody joins Toastmasters, and you have the hope and dream of, I'm going to join this club, it's going to be great, this great experience, and then the club starts to fail. We can develop sort of a failure mentality towards, oh, this is one more thing in life that's just not working out because we've had so many early failures in our life. And there was a certain aspect of that was with me. Oh, this is one of these other things that just isn't going to work out. I'm trying to figure life out. And I was hoping this was going to work. But that idea of let's win with Toastmasters, or let's go do something else and win with it. And I went, yeah, I want to win in life. And then somebody else at the table said, well, Toastmasters ranks all the clubs. Let's be a top 10 club in Toastmasters. And we all lit up when the idea of that. Now I'm not going to try to spend a lot of this time I have with you beating up on TI, but I've written up a whole program that I think we should recognize top clubs. We should recognize strong clubs and Toastmasters, and we should a Toastmasters club shouldn't be 20 people or 25 people. A great Toastmasters club should be like 40 to 60 people, and it should be a dynamic communication leadership program. And we should recognize those, and we should push clubs to be big, strong clubs. But the way TI is set up, you get a club to 60 members, the district wants to split it and have 2 clubs. And it's this mentality of almost failure that comes down. And we had district officials coming in trying to split our club up. And then people asked me, did they try to break your club up? And I said, yeah, one person did. And I broke their nose, and nobody said anything to me after that. So anyway, being facetious, I didn't actually do that. But I just told them when my district leadership came in, I said, people don't want to join a Toastmasters club. They want to join our Toastmasters club. And that's the difference. No, we're not breaking the club up. But I'll tell you some of the challenges that we had. So the first thing is we had 35 people on the roster, 12 coming to the meeting. So we had a challenge. How do we get them back? We called them and asked them what did they like coming to the meeting. There's nothing in the Toastmasters manual that says go call the people, but we go, well, let's find out what's going on. And when they told us the number one reason that they wanted to come to the club is they wanted to have fun. And I think that was some of the stuff that the comments I was hearing, that the meetings become sort of boring and whatnot. And so we'd had 2 presidents in a row that were pretty draconian. They were trying to rule by their way, and the meetings weren't fun. We weren't having fun coming in anymore. And so we actually, here's another challenge. How do we make sure we maintain fun meetings from here at this point forward? So we decided, well, we're going to write a policy in the club. We started writing our own policies on how we handle things in our club. And the number one policy we have is we maintain a fun, friendly environment. And so if anything ever happens in the club, and stuff happens in clubs all the time. You get people that give a speech that insults half the audience. You have somebody give a bad speech review. I mean, we had one guy join our club. He was using it at his own personal dating service, and he was dating all the women in the club. You want to have problems in your club, have 2 exes and a current in the club, okay? And so we had to talk to him. It's not a fun, friendly environment when you're doing that. And so that was the main thing. We had to maintain a fun, friendly environment. And there was a challenge there for us to figure out how to handle that. The next problem was we wanted to come up in the rankings. And so we go, well, gosh, how do we get more points? We had that challenge. Well, we put a program together and went to the people and the members in the club. And we said, would you be willing to do 1 speech level this year? And at that point, we had some people in the club that were taking 2 and 3 years to do a CC. And we weren't moving people through the manuals very rapidly. And we were having a hard time filling our roster, but when we started this, not everybody wanted to do it, but we took the ones that did and got the momentum and the energy going in the club with the ones that did want to do it. And people said, yeah, I'll commit to completing a speaking level this year. And that's part of our club culture, that we expect you to do a speaking level every year. Now, Pathways threw a whole wrench in that system, because no longer do we have 10 speeches that we can program. And I'm going to tell you what I came up with. The challenge and the opportunity that came from that. And what happened was, I'll just tell you what happened. And I really started to see where Toastmasters sort of came together and this was a complete surprise. The energy in our club started to just take off. The enthusiasm in our club started to just take off when we got people willing to do a speaking level every year, to do 10 speeches a year. And I had a huge realization about what Toastmasters was, because before I came in, I looked at, here's this Toastmasters program. I have to learn the program and I have to do what Toastmasters tells me to do. And here's all the pieces. And if I do that, I'm doing Toastmasters right. What I saw was when we got people to speak frequently, they started keeping the gain from their speeches. And I always give the example, it's like, to me, Toastmasters is an exercise program. You exercise your communication skills, you exercise your leadership skills. We're exercising those muscles, and those muscles are typically very atrophied in most people, because for most of our life, we're told to sit there and shut up, and we're not put in positions. We don't get that runway to be an effective leader. So we're thrown into a leadership position. with no training and then take huge losses on trying to work with people. And this is an environment that gives you those muscles so you can do that. So I always say, if you hadn't worked out in 10 years and you decided to get in shape and you went to the gym one day, how are you going to feel the next day? You're going to be sore. And if your mentality is, I'm so sore, I'm not going back to the gym for 6 months. I go, you just lost all the gain you got going to the gym one day. How are you going to feel 6 months from now? You're going to lose all the gain and you're going to be sore in 6 months. But we had people come up and do, in the club, we had people do an icebreaker and they were so nervous. They go, I'm not going to speak for 3 or 4 months. Like, not speaking is going to get them over their nervousness. What happened was when we got them speaking frequently, everybody in the club, their life started to change. And they started to get what I call the twinkle in the eye and the spring in the step. They became more confident. They became more competent. And we've all watched this. Somebody gets through about 5, 6 speeches in Toastmasters. All of a sudden, they start to get enough experience. It's a pretty short runway when you think of it. They start to feel a little more confident in what they're doing. And when we started changing people's lives is when the club really took off and they started bringing their friends in. And we did that by getting people to do the program. Now, we had another problem because we're getting so many members, we couldn't get everybody through their speaking levels because, and we have a weekend meeting and it's a 3-hour meeting. We have 6 speakers and I have a half an hour for table topics and all that, but still, we couldn't get everybody through their speaking levels because we didn't have enough speaking slots. So where was the opportunity? We created an opportunity to get more speaking slots during the week. We went to lunch after the meeting and we'd have 2 or 3 speakers at lunch. In the second half of the year, we went to 2 meetings a week. We figured out how to deliver more speeches to make sure everybody got through the speaking levels. Instead of capping the production of the club based on how many slots we have, we expanded the production of the club to fulfill the requirements all the members needed. And that's what allowed us to grow. And I've talked to a lot of corporate clubs and weekly clubs that meet like for an hour at noon, and they can only have like 2 speakers a week. And they go, we can't get everybody through and people aren't getting the gain out of it. And I said, they won't because they're not speaking frequently enough. Where's the opportunity? There's an opportunity. I go, once a month, why don't you meet on a Thursday night at a bar? Okay. Have 8 speakers, drink some beer and throw some peanut shells on the floor. Or meet at a Saturday, go to somebody's house on Saturday afternoon and have wine and cheese and, speaking in wine or something, right? And you get to learn to speak after drinking. It's a very important skill to learn, okay? But what happens is you have an outside meeting, you have an extra meeting, and you throw 6 speakers in and you get a month's worth of speaking done in that one meeting, but there's an opportunity to think of that. Now, as we move along here was, to me, the hidden gem in Toastmasters that I discovered. And to me, it is the jewel of this program. It really doesn't have that much to do with speaking. It doesn't have that much to do with leading or meeting management and all the soft skills we learn, which are vital. It has to do with our attitude that we can figure out a solution. And most of our life, when you look at how we're sort of socialized by our parents telling us what to do, and then when we get in school, we succeed in school by showing up at the right time and sitting in the right seat and doing what we're told. And we have 12 to 16 years. I had 16 years of sitting in the right seat at the right time, and I got to progress through every year to a higher level. And then we get dumped off the conveyor belt of higher learning, and nothing happens unless we create it. But we've been indoctrinated into this automatic system that we get to succeed and progress in life by just showing up. And what I've seen with a lot of people, that they don't get out of that. And I know that same gentleman that said the good Lord doesn't give you youth and wisdom at the same time. My first summer out of college, when I was working for my family business, we had a dairy processing company in Indiana. I was going, God, I'm just exhausted. I can't believe well, I was used to going to class a couple hours. I didn't have to be attentive 8-10 hours a day and be on. I was running around, hanging out because I was in school. So I can't believe how exhausted I am. He looked at me, he goes, you're going through the second biggest transition you'll ever go through in your life. All right, so what do you mean? He goes, well, from school to work. That's the second biggest transition you'll ever do in your life. And of course, people always say, how can you say something that begets a question? I go, well, what's the biggest? He goes, that's when you get married. And both were true. Both were true. But the thing is, I think there's a huge opportunity, or there's a problem with, and I'm dealing this with this right now. I have a very close friend of mine whose son graduated from college in May and does not yet have a job. And his grandfather died, and he was able to move into his grandfather's townhome. So he's got this really nice townhome with all his furniture, and he's got a family car, and he's got his mom's credit card to order Uber Eats and stuff. And you just sort of see this thing, and he's like sitting in this house, and he's got this really nice house with a flat screen TV, and he's talking about he wants to put a fire pit in the backyard, and nothing. There's no comments that come out of him. I need to get a job. And so the family's been fairly frustrated. And I said, why don't you let me talk to him? So I'm now mentoring this young man that just started about 2 weeks ago on let's get you moving and get a job. And I had recommended Toastmasters to him, and he was like, I don't know. And I said, look, I just told him what I'm going over here. You have succeeded in life because you showed up and sat in the seat at the right time. And now the only way you succeed in life is you have to create every day. And if you don't create it, it doesn't happen. And you've experienced that for 10 months. You have not created anything in 10 months other than a flat screen TV and the desire for a fire pit. So nothing's going to happen unless you create it. And you need to get in an environment where you can practice creating things and not get killed when they don't work out, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And Toastmasters is a great environment to learn how to create answers to table topics questions, to learn how to create and articulate your message, to learn how to coach people, to get the create how to skills to run an effective meeting, and to hold your to communicate with people. And you're going to do interviews and stuff. And now I have a huge interview set up for him, and I have a call with him later this afternoon. I'm going, this is one of those things, if you've been doing Toastmasters for the last 6 months, I wouldn't have to spend an hour with you on the phone on how to answer all these questions. You'd know how to do it. Okay. So there's, like I said, a great opportunity from that standpoint, but it was really that experience watching all these people's lives change. And I'll just, by doing the program. Okay. And I'm going to come back around with how I handled Pathways a few years ago, because I was president for the 3rd year in my club. And when Pathways came in, we had to go full time. We're in the middle of COVID, all that stuff's going on. So we're hybrid. We're trying, and I had people wanting to quit and whatnot. But back to watching people's lives change. I just want to make this really clear to you. We built a club to 95 members, the number 4 club in the world in Toastmasters, because every member in the club wanted to build the club and be a top 10 club. We didn't build it because I wanted to do it or somebody else did it. We did, you don't do that with a club. Everybody had so much pride in our club and where we were going and what the number, we played that number game. We had a graph on the wall, and we went from 7,800 to 110 the first year because we filled the forms out. The second year we went to 58. The 3rd year we went to 28. And the next year we went to 14, and then we went to number 4. And the year we went to 14, we thought we had it, and we don't know until the points come out at the end, and we missed it by 4. It was like, oh, so the next year, the whole club doubled down. I just want to share this with you, because I was going to my preacher mode going, I have seen something. I have seen something in Toastmasters that other people have not seen. I have been to the mountaintop, and I have seen the other side. And that is, usually around May, the VPE is begging members to complete a level so you can get your points in. You're not getting enough points. And here's what was going on my club. And this is what happens when you get an entire club behind a goal. We had the members calling the VPE going, you haven't given me enough speaking slots to finish my CC. I'm not going to be responsible for this club not being a top 10 club. You find me speaking slots. And the VPE, it's just, oh, these people are calling, demanding to speak, demanding they get their education awards in because we all wanted to win the game. And I look at how we run Toastmasters, and I look at what TI's brought down for us to run, and I'm just frustrated as heck as I can be about we need to reward this excellence in club levels. Okay, I beat that drum enough. So let me just tell you what I did. There was an opportunity. There was a problem. There's a challenge. We had to go full-time to Pathways. I'm president. We have about 35 people in my club right now. I had probably 10 people that didn't want to do pathways, and I had 5 that were going to quit. So, and I had 5 people that said, no, I'll just coach. I don't want to speak anymore if it's pathways. And so I'm faced with this problem. The other thing, I'm used to running the club. We have a very successful system in my club where we get every member through a speaking level, and a speaking level in Toastmasters was 10 speeches. That doesn't work in pathways. The speaking levels are all different. And so it's very hard to manage pathways the way we manage with a consistent program. If I can get every person to do, if they're working on an advanced communicator, it's 10 speeches. If they're working on their competent communicator, it's 10 speeches. I can work you through and make sure that we're getting that done. So I came up, I'm going to come back. So I looked at it. I went back down to the basics. So I have this problem. So where's the challenge? I have this challenge. Where's the opportunity? That's what I'm trying to say. I go, I want to make sure my club survives to the level that the members get the benefit of Toastmasters. It doesn't survive to the degree they do pathways or they have an acronym of CC or DTM next to their name. That's not what causes it to survive. What causes my club to survive and thrive is if the members' lives change. The members' lives change because they do the program. So and I had that program down with the old legacy program. So I said, okay, the program was 10 speeches. Then we wanted everybody to, we call it coaching, not speech evaluation. We call it coaching in my club. I want everybody to coach 10 times. Part of the program is learning to run a meeting and be the Toastmaster, be the general evaluator. Part of the program is being the functionaries from the table topics to the all counter. And so I put a program together that I call it the Competent Renaissance Speakers Program. And I go, would you agree? And here's another thing. I put this on a spreadsheet. Would you agree to speak 10 times, coach 10 times? We have 5 functionary positions in our club. Be a functionary 5 times. Be a be a Toastmaster, general evaluator, and table topics once this year. And then I did not send out a blast to everybody in the meeting, everybody in the club. I called the 10 members personally and said, I have a question for you. And here's the other thing I'll just tell you I did. I had some people that did not want to do pathways. I said, good, don't do pathways. I'm not going to force you to do pathways. I don't want to do pathways either. Okay. So, and they were like, oh, yeah, me neither. So we sort of like, we rallied on the fact we didn't want to do pathways. I said, just speak out of the Competent Communicator manual. Let the VPE know what you did. She'll fill out your form and pathways and we'll send it in. And this is one of the things I always talk about. I go, there's no Toastmasters police. No, nobody's getting arrested for doing an icebreaker out of the Competent Communicator manual and reporting in pathways. So the thing was, I wanted my members to stay in the club and I wanted to get the benefit of speaking, and getting feedback. And so I had 5 that agreed to speak out of the manual. The 5 that weren't going to speak at all agreed. And one guy said, I'm getting tired of doing 5 to 7 minute speeches. I want to speak on longer subjects. I said, great. Every speech you do is a 15-minute speech now. He goes, okay, I'm in. I'm looking at how to service the members. And he was a long-time member. I said, just let the VP know that that's what's happening. I'll let her know. And we coordinated that. And I serviced my member. I saved all those members. And I got every member but one to agree to do the Competent Renaissance Speakers Program. Okay. And that's usually one. I mean, that's fine. And I didn't need the one, but it was like, okay, I was so disappointed. I thought it was a great program. But for the last 4 years, we've been running our club off that program. 10 speeches, 10 coaches, 5 functionaries, and then run the meeting, Toastmaster, general evaluator, table topics at least once. And what happened was interesting. The 10 people that had this big issue with pathways, within 6 months, they were on pathways. And they were just speaking on pathways. Okay. But I will just tell you the other thing, the challenge I had with pathways is most of the programs are identical. They just put a different name on them. So I just tell people, I said, what's important is you speak. So if you have a speech project and you don't like the speech project that Pathways is giving you, pick another Pathway speech project and we're going to record it so you get your thing. But I want you to speak on something you're interested in. I want you to speak and get feedback. This isn't speaking without feedback. This is a training and development program. So I'm fairly flexible with people on their programs on pathways I want to keep them winning as Toastmasters over keep them in a rigid program that nobody asked for. I never did it again. I said something bad. Anyway, on it, I want to keep them winning. And I think that the opportunities here are handling these challenges of how to keep people winning with this program, and then creating, as you were talking about that, creating that club culture. And the club culture is not what you print on the front of your program. The club culture is what you expect of a member, how you treat members in your club, how you handle adversity in your club, the fun you have in your club. And the fact that one of the things that really set our club culture up were a couple things. One was we maintain a fun, friendly environment. The second one was we expect you to do 10 speeches a year if you come in here. And then we expect you to be in the audience when the other people are speaking. And so it's not a matter of, if somebody comes to our club and all they want to do is speak, and we talk to them before they join the club on that. I said that the Toastmasters program consists of 4 major areas of development: speaking, what that includes listening. How many of us never heard an awe until we were all counter? Now we get whiplash from here. So you have a communication development. You have a coaching development where you learn to give feedback and you learn to help people improve in their lives. That's another soft skill development. You have meeting management development where you learn to run an effective meeting, being a Toastmaster, being a general evaluator, and you have leadership development, being a leader, a member, officer in the club, learning how to work as a team member. And all that teaches you how to be a team member. And that's something that is not taught anywhere in school. How to be a team member, how to work together, how to communicate effectively, how to run meetings. Those skills are not taught. And from that basis, the challenge we have is letting people know the opportunity they have in Toastmasters. And I think there's a huge opportunity for a lot of young people to get them in. There's so many young people I know that cannot communicate outside of a text. I mean, you ask them to have a conversation and it's like, no, let me text it to you. I was a senior executive in an international foundation. We hired a receptionist and she texted in that she quit. We said, you can't do that. And she texted back, why not? You have to come in and talk to us. But I told you, no, come in and talk to us. It was really an interesting generational gap. And as young as I feel, I look around and I feel sometimes pretty old. But anyway, we're at about the 30-minute mark, but that's the main thing I wanted to share with you. I think that the real jewel of Toastmasters is the problems we're all discussing, is the challenges we have is figuring out how we can take that and build it into an opportunity. And when Margaret was introducing me, I'm the CEO of a company right now, but it's my company and I have 3 partners, and I solve problems and figure out how to get to companies, how to make a contact every day. I'm solving problems and figuring out for myself how to resolve these things. And I really have to credit that crazy little meeting once a week with Toastmasters where I went and gave a speech and nobody showed up and we had to figure out how to fill up the roster and the table topics master didn't come in, or somebody gave bad coaching and somebody's crying leaving the room and I got to tackle him and sit on him and talk to him, and I had to figure out how to keep him in the club. All that practice in figuring out how to take these challenges and turn them into opportunities, it sort of taught me to see the opportunities and challenges every day of my life, and I'm very grateful for that. So I think we're pretty close. I was going to give some time for some Q&A, and I'd love to hear from you. So if you have questions, you want to talk to me, or you can't throw tomatoes at me, I'm too far away. So
Okay, we can start the Q&A if you want.
sure.
Who would like to be first to ask a question? Linnell's got her hand up.
Thanks, Margaret. Lance, phenomenal presentation. Thank you so much. I'm wondering about connecting with people who are too busy for that phone call. I hear that a lot. Yeah, I'll connect with you tomorrow. Yeah, you can call me tomorrow. And tomorrow never seems to come. Do you have any ideas for how to connect, especially with the younger demographic?
Boy, I have this in business all the time. I mean, outside of Toastmasters, I don't have that much of a problem with my Toastmasters team, but I've got a family that I've been with for over 30 years. So on it, but I think it's just nailing it down. Or one of the things, as an example, we have in our club back when email started, we had people, we'd send emails out and they wouldn't respond. And so we actually put a policy in and we make it known you're expected to respond to an email or a phone call within 24 hours. That's part of the club culture. So it's a little bit like, if you're going to be part of the club, I need to have communication with you. We need to have a time to talk. And I don't know anybody that's that busy. And I have some business people I work with that's very frustrating because I know you're not that busy. You can call me back, and it's an ongoing issue. I don't have anything specific other than I do believe in handling people with kindness, not harshness, and telling them, like, gosh, you're really important. You know, my international speech, and part of my winning speech was about validating rightness in people. And that was one of the things we did in our club. We had another policy that we validate what we want to get. And we don't, our ethics or our discipline rather were very light. We didn't come down heavy on anybody in the club if there's a problem. And so it's like saying, you're really important, validate them. You're an important member of the club. I've got some really important things I need to run by you. I need to get your opinion on or something like that, so that there's a desire for them to call you back. Because, you know, what the other thing I've seen, Linnell, on that too, is a lot of times people, they're not carrying their weight. And they don't want to talk to somebody because it sort of reminds them of the fact they're not really being a good group member. And so they won't call you back because I'm too busy. No, the truth of the matter is you're letting everybody down, and you don't want to talk to somebody you're letting down. So I always have to make those things safe for people. And this is one of the things I learned the first time I was president. It was really important for me that I had all my officers winning, because I knew from other experiences I'd had, if I had an officer that wasn't doing their job, I was going to get it. And I did not want to have to set the meeting up. I didn't want to have to schedule all the speakers. I didn't want to have to collect the dues. So I wanted to make sure that all my officers were happy. So I was meeting with them and talking to them weekly to make sure they're winning on their job. But a lot of times an officer will come in, or a member will come in, and they won't speak for 2 months, and they join Toastmasters and they didn't speak for 2 months. They start to get this buildup of, I shouldn't have done this and stuff. So we try to get people speaking right away. I try to get my officers up and running right away whenever I was president, to make sure that they're feeling good about what they're doing. And just the morale of my people is always a very important point. So I don't know if that helps or not, but those are, without having the specifics of the personality, it's very difficult to answer that. But
That helps. That's a great idea.
you have an opportunity to figure that challenge out that will now serve you in all of your life once you figure that out.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Lance, for that. Tom has a question he'd like to ask.
Sure.
Hey, Lance, excuse me, great presentation. And my question is based on what you were talking about with getting that commitment for 10 speeches and being functionaries and being a coach or evaluator. We seem to have issues in a lot of our clubs. I'm up in District 45. And by the way, you presented in Vermont. I don't know if you remember, quite a few years ago.
But down in Vermont, yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. But getting back to my question, it seems like there's a trio in clubs, and that everybody depends on that same 3, possibly 4 people, and getting other people to step up. It's a challenge for us. And I just want to know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, a couple of things that I've seen. Here's this is just stuff I learned. The amount of communication necessary to run a Toastmasters club, or quite honestly, any organization, is grossly underestimated. And a lot of people try to run the club sort of on an automatic basis, that everybody's supposed to show up and do what they want. It takes a lot of love and caring and a lot of communication to get people on. Now, I have certain members in my club that we can count on every week to be there, but we've got years of being together. We know each other really well. But what I found is that one of the things was, especially when members were coming in, and I've been vice president of membership a number of times, and one of the things I would do is I would sort of interview the person, whether this is something they want to do, and I would talk to about what Toastmasters is. This isn't just a speaking organization. This is where you learn the soft skills to be successful in life. And here's what you're going to learn. You have to do the program. If you don't want to do the program, I don't want you to join the club. And what happens was there were people that sort of understood what they were getting into. And if they joined the club, they were willing to do that. Not very many walked away. Some of them were just said, no, we had a great conversation. They just said, no, it's really not something I'm interested in. I said, okay, great. That's fine. I don't want people in the club that aren't interested in being in the club. They're just going to cause problems. So I set up what's expected of them when they come in. Then we have to deliver that. And that means the VPE has to be scheduling people in the different positions. And then every year, I've been president 3 times. I've been sergeant at arms, just so you know, the last 3 years of my club. So I run all the Zoom functions, and I still shovel all the manure. Okay. It's like, there's, it's nothing's above me in Toastmasters. So on that, but every year is when I was president, I would sit down and set up what my goals were. And I would talk to my members individually. I didn't have so many people I couldn't talk to them. I would start the meetings off with what we're trying to do, and people that weren't at the meetings, we'd call and, check. There's a lot of just caring and good communication, and also just telling people how important they are. Because I think one of the worst things is if somebody doesn't come to a Toastmasters meeting for 2 or 3 meetings and nobody calls and cares, they start to feel like nobody calls or cares. But if somebody goes, are you okay? Everybody's worried about you. Did something happen? Oh, you missed me? I'll come back. So those are the things I've seen. It's the little things but those are the little things I've learned now when I manage companies that I really pay attention to with people and clients, that I go see them rather than just send them an email if I can. I go shake their hand. We go to lunch. Let's get something. Let's talk to each other. Let's get to know each other. That personal connection is what I've learned through Toastmasters on how to build a successful organization, a successful group.
Thank you, Lance.
Anybody else have a question?
Well, I would have kept talking on that one for another 4 minutes.
Karen, would you have a question there, being you had a bunch of hearts?
Oh, well, I'm kind of verbose, so I'll try and keep it brief. But so I'm on an email list, Lance, and I haven't, and you didn't make me afraid. I am afraid. So I've not, I haven't drank your Kool-Aid, because it's like, oh, I'm not at that level. When I came into Toastmasters 26 years ago, I think it is, I had no desire. I was 46. I had no desire to get into leadership. No. I'm going to be Mother Teresa. Let me help you up to your level, because I am not capable of that. It took me 20 years to get my DTM. And I did it because I owed Peter Coswin that DTM, because he held a space for me all those years. No question, just gratitude.
Well, I think you're a great example, Karen, of no matter where we are in life, we can benefit from the experiences we have, and we can discover skills and abilities we had in us that we didn't realize we had, and we can overcome personal barriers and challenges that have stopped us all of our life. So I'm sure you had those gains. And the point that you just had, that you were part of a team. You weren't there just on your own, and the people around you cared about you and you cared about them, and they needed your help, and you stepped up and did something to help somebody because you had developed that trust and that friendship with them. And that's really the essence of living in life. There's so many times we get into, especially in the business world and things like that, where everything's about economics and money. And great organizations, whether it's an NFL football team or a professional hockey team, got to hit both sides of the border here. There's this human factor that we have to take into consideration, and the fact that people have to be recognized and enriched as human beings. And that's what really builds the camaraderie and the teams and the success, is when we come together as a group and accomplish something great. And we get to experience that in a little microcosm in Toastmasters, so we can go out in the world and make bigger effects. And I always say, I never got in Toastmasters, and it's the truth, to be a great Toastmaster. That was never, ever why I came in. It looked like a fun thing to do in the beginning, and then it looked like there were challenges. And I liked the group, and let's do something. Here's an opportunity to do something big, which was to build my club. It was never about winning the world championship when I started. It was about, could we be a top 10 club? Wow, I would have accomplished something in my life. It would be a top 10 club. And that success changed my business career, because I figured out how to work with people and how to to lead and how to energize and motivate people in a very positive way. And that gave me the base to go on and win the world championship, because I had the confidence in myself to actually put a message out there from that standpoint. And not that I was a slouch before. I'm just saying I worked off a lot of rough edges in my life in Toastmasters. So Karen, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank
and
you.
thank you for asking me to come up and see you this morning.
Lance, it meant that you took those small steps and grew wings. We'll take 2 more questions. First, we'll have Dan, and then we will have Jessica. So Dan, your question, and then after that, Jessica.
Well, thanks, Lance, for a great presentation. You've inspired me to focus not on the Toastmasters program, but on the people that are using it and how we can make it work for them. I think that's an incredible message. You spoke quite a bit about getting people to step up to learn to, I guess, a little bit about running the meeting, but mostly speaking and evaluating. But Toastmasters, we say where leaders are made, but we don't really provide evaluation on our leadership ability, how we're getting along in leadership. The training we do, so-called club officer training, is more about how to run the machines, how to work the system. It's not about how to be leaders. What do you think we can do to push, create some learning and provide some advice and feedback on how to be a leader as we go along?
Okay, well, if you haven't gotten this so far, I'm not politically correct. So
That's great for me.
they changed that positioning for that. We were always known as a communication organization worldwide, and they dropped communication out completely and changed it to leadership. And we don't have a position as leadership, but the leadership, there's a huge component of leadership in learning how to work with people. And the other thing is they changed. This is my thing. What changed me was we had a program that we could sort of race and compete in, that we figured out how to use the tools in Toastmasters to be better at them. And that was that whole thing. We wanted to be a higher ranked club in the world. And that it's a little bit like how hard would a hockey team play or a football team play if there was no Super Bowl? It's like you go out and just play the game, and it's the first person to get 6. If every team gets 6 points, everybody got 6 points, and everybody got to be a winner, right? And I go, what's the fun in that? And so the other thing is the way we used to have our Competent Leader program. And so people were sort of working on those other leadership programs. And then there's nothing in Pathways that gets into the management and running the club. But part of Competent Leader was being a Toastmaster and being a general evaluator and being the functionary positions and all that. So that was handling the running of the club. So to me, there were some huge holes in the Pathways that whoever put it together didn't really understand the Toastmasters program, because it didn't encompass all the Toastmasters program. It's like the club existed and now you came and spoke at it, but they didn't give you the tools to make sure the club existed. So what I recommend in that is sort of create your own. You can go back and pick up a Competent Leader program. You can go back, and I think the leadership giving as a general evaluator, giving really good feedback on your meetings is very good. We run annual goals. So we start in July 1st, and on June 30th, these are our targets we're trying to hit. The whole club knows about that. We're always top 10, we're always 10 points, President's Distinguished. That's sort of where we are now. But we also track our education completions, and we typically run somewhere between 55 and 65 education completions a year. So, and there's some people that track stuff internationally. We're usually a top 50 club based on education completions each year, not membership and stuff. But my thing is, look at the old program and then look at what you have and say, how can we give people feedback on leadership? Leadership to me consists primarily of 2 things. One is knowing where you're going. Okay, because if you look up the word lead, I always said, I read a great book on leadership. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. It's called The Dictionary. So you look at the word lead, it comes from a Latin word which means to go. So when you're leading somebody, you're going somewhere. So you need to know where you're going. That's the big thing. And the second thing you need to do is arrive there. So everything in leadership falls between knowing where you're going and arriving there. And there's your leadership bookends. Okay. And so you got to figure out how you're going to arrive there. And that's your leadership. So that question is a lot longer question than the 2 minutes we're probably going to use to answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lance, for that. Jessica?
My question goes back to your bio. As both a Toastmaster and a Rotarian, what has been your experience with that alliance that we have?
The alliance was thrown together, I think, by a couple sophomore individuals who thought that they could get more membership into Rotary by having Toastmasters join, and Toastmasters they could get more membership into Toastmasters by having Rotary join. They're two totally separate organizations and two separate sets of purposes. Had Toastmasters come up with a training program for Rotarians, then that would have made sense, because the club leadership in Rotary needs to know how to speak and run a meeting, and we could provide that, but they didn't offer any, like a Speechcraft type program for Rotary that Toastmasters could come in and deliver to a Rotary district or something. And Rotary is all about community service, service above self. It's about giving back to the community. It's not about personal development. So they're two totally separate purposes. And I know a little bit about what I talk, because in Orange County, which is just south of LA County here, I was working with a Toastmasters club in the Rotary district that we were trying to get to be the training club for all the incoming presidents. They have about 65 clubs in that Rotary district, and it would be great to have 65 members in a Rotary, in a Toastmasters club, learning to run a meeting, learning to give good speeches. And every year we'd have 65 people coming through, and we have a core group that's sort of keeping that thing going. I thought it would be a great situation. And to try to get that off the ground was, I don't know, it's like trying to end this war in Ukraine or whatever. We're just not sinking. And I had a couple people that were both in Toastmasters and Rotary trying to get it off the ground. They were working with the districts, and I was giving my blessing on it and willing to come in and do a lot of the training. I thought it would be a great template for other districts, which was what was my interested in. I wanted to show that when it worked in Orange County, we can now do this around the world, and we could expand both organizations. And I had a very hard time getting it off the ground. So I think it was a bright idea at the boardroom level, but couldn't get implemented, in the streets. That's my 2 cents on it. So
Thanks, Lance, for that. We still have a few minutes, so we will try to squeak in the 2 more questions, and that would be Diane and Shirley. Diane?
One of the things in one of my clubs that they saw the gap in the leadership and the loss of the Competent Leader Manual, so they created their own. And so I think that we have pages of options where you take it to the meeting, or you have it online and do a fillable PDF, depending on your format, and you get that feedback that you would have liked. And we put it in a handy little book, we bring it to our meetings, we trade it around, or we ask if you're not in person, and we call it the Accomplished Leader Program. It's and it's working, and there's a little gift at the end, a little recognition and support for doing it. And I think it's
yeah, let me just comment. That's fantastic. That's exactly what I would look at, is let's figure out how to make the club work. Let's put something together. The other thing I'm going to say is, you got people on this call, you might want to make that template available to the other clubs. They can take a look at it. You put the work into it, and they can benefit from it.
I think that the person who has the template is Nigel Bowles, for those of you who are in D99 and have contact. I will tell him that people might be interested.
Yeah, I quite honestly, I would love to see it. So I think it's fantastic. So.
Okay, I will look at that.
If you give it to me, I'll make sure that Lance gets it.
Okay.
And Shirley, you'll be our last question.
Thank you. I just want to ask Lance if you would address the method, the way Toastmaster determines leadership at the top of the district with the trio. Generally, it's like whoever is the club quality director moves to the club growth director, and the club growth director moves to the district director automatically. I am so frustrated with the leadership skills that I see managing the districts. Well, most of the people have no clue about what leadership is. Yeah. They put together a district success plan and park it in the file and never look at it, never work it, but think things are supposed to happen.
Yeah, let me address that just for a minute. First of all, in any organization, I think it's very important that the people who are leading the organization know how to do the lower parts in the organization. And I've seen this in the business world where and I've been in companies where some new guy comes in, he doesn't really understand how the business works, but he's trying to run it from the top. So I think it's a good leadership development program to come up the ranks and know the different pieces. So when you are district director, you've been in that person's job, you know what it takes. So I think that's a good thing. You have a whole other issue with, and I think a lot of this comes from the TI orientation and training of where the programs that they run their districts on and how they reward their districts for the growth that they get and the clubs they start. And like I said, there's nothing in this that is, it's sort of like the district operates at one level. Toastmasters lives and dies at the club level. If you didn't have any districts, but if all the Toastmasters clubs in the world were 40 to 60 people and they were getting all their people through their programs, and you don't have any districts, we would have a booming organization. The district's there to support the clubs and to keep that structure in. From that standpoint, I think there's a miss in the way a lot of the stuff is trained on what the human factor I talk about, the fact what are we really doing here? We're causing people to win. It's crazy to me. It's crazy. We should have 2 or 3 million people in Toastmasters. This is such a needed set of skills. And we should be known as the preeminent or whatever, predominant, I don't know if I figure out the right word here, communication leadership training program in the world. It's very inexpensive. It's hands-on. It's go as you have to learn. Nobody's cramming it down your throat. You get to ride the horse yourself and figure out what it feels like. It's a phenomenal program. We should have this thing busted wide open, and we're struggling right now. We're half the size we were a couple of years ago. So we've got some issues that we have to address. I'm frustrated with that too, but just so you know, there's a lot of districts. I work all over the world with districts. There's a lot of districts that it's not automatic, and that the person who's the PDQ does not get elected because there were problems with him as PDQ and there were issues. That happened to my home district a couple of times where someone was coming up and there were personality conflicts and there were management conflicts and somebody else came in and ran things. So it can work that way, but as part of your district culture is what I would probably say. You have to have enough people outside that are watching what's going on that say we can't, because there's times bad people get into district leadership. I know districts that there was one district which will go unnamed, but the district director was so difficult to work with that both the PDQ and the club growth director, whatever, quit. And there was one person, they didn't have a trio, they had a single. And the district was failing and nobody would step in. It was a French, and the district director wouldn't step out and let somebody come in. It was crazy. Anyway, hey, welcome to planet Earth. That's all I can say. Welcome to life. And here's what it teaches you. And here's the silver lining to me with Pathways. That how many times in life, in a business we're in, or city program or state program comes down or something like that, that says you're supposed to do this. And whoever wrote the program doesn't know what in the world you're doing. And I've been in corporations where, some program comes down, here's the new program we're supposed to do. And it's like, what are we doing? We have to figure out how to make that work because somebody upstairs said this is how it's working. Now, hopefully over time, we'll get this training program in Toastmasters aligned and working in the right direction so that it can really expand the clubs. For right now, Pathways is what we have. So I've given you some insight into the way I approach it on how to make it work. But the real jewel of that lesson is looking at it, looking at the challenge and seeing the opportunity and how to make it work. Now I can do that outside of Toastmasters because I learned how to do that in Toastmasters. And that's really the secret. Taking these things we do in Toastmasters and then applying them outside in our life. And then we become more successful in life as we go through, as we move forward.
Thank you very much, Lance, for that. And I think we should all give Lance an applaud for his
thank you.
inspiring speech. And if you have any comments that you'd like Lance to know, please put them in the chat. Now, we